Hey everybody, welcome back to LED Live. Today we are going to talk about a topic that touches all of us, social media. Are you addicted?
Find out on this episode of LED Live.
But first, let me take a selfie.
Light exposing darkness.
So guys, who here is addicted to social media and wants to fess up? Come on.
Oh man, I
Addicted.
have to make myself get off there sometimes. I won't lie.
I know, I'm telling you, like there's times where I have actually sat down and wasted hours away and just went, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like I literally went to my phone to check an email.
Yeah.
So today might be a little hard for some of us to kind of like talk about, but before we get into that, Mikey, introduce our guest here.
This is my cousin Deborah Elmo. Is it Elmo or Elmo or Elmo?
Are you sure you guys?
We'll go with that.
I swear she's my cousin.
Yeah.
Well, I have you on my phone as Elmo. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on board with us, Deborah. It's a joy to have people come on and give us a little fresh perspective, and it's neat to kind of hear everybody's experience. So welcome aboard. And we'll get into this topic of social media, but nobody wants to confess up. Nobody's addicted here.
I probably was addicted to Facebook at one point. I absolutely hate it now.
What do you think is the most watched or most paid attention to social media site?
Did you just give
I
the
don't
answer
know.
away? You
That's-
said watched. Is it YouTube?
No. Sorry.
I'm gonna say
Well, you can watch
Instagram.
You
I
can
mean,
actually watch these two. No.
Facebook.
It is Facebook.
Yeah.
It is Facebook. Facebook is still dominating as the number one most used app, which is not very much of a surprise because businesses use it and so on and so forth. But
we use it.
yeah, YouTube's up there. So we're gonna get into a little bit of this, but first of all, I want to thank you guys for donating. Those of you that have supported this ministry. Man, we owe all these shows to you guys, and we're able to put these out. So thank you. If you haven't checked out our Patreon page and you would like to figure out how to support our ministry, look at our Patreon. We got a lot of cool perks there. We've got a whole website with documentaries that we produce on various different subjects. In fact, today's topic is really inspired by a documentary we made called Selfie. And this is all about social media and how we'll cut to a trailer right now.
So really what this report shows, Common Sense Media's founder says, it's like the digital transformation of childhood and adolescence is complete.
Anyone who uses social media might admit it can be hard to tear yourself away. Now the former head of Facebook says that's exactly what the founders intended.
About 77% of parents think that it is more difficult to raise teenagers today than when they were growing up.
And so it's a two-way street. The brain created social media, and social media shapes the brain.
The like button releases dopamine, which causes you to spend more time with the device.
So these are little electronic drug delivery devices. I know that's a crude way to put it, but that's what you're saying.
I think in the back, deep recesses of our minds, we kind of knew something bad could happen. But I think the way we defined it was not like this, not like this, not like this.
If you use social media or you have kids, this is really great information. I mean, you really need to take a look at this because this stuff is changing our society. We also have a Vimeo page where you guys can watch digital versions of all of our documentaries. So check it out. Of course, we have a YouTube page, but you already know that. You're already on YouTube. We also have t-shirts. Those of you that love wearing t-shirts, we sell them and help support our ministry as well. So let's jump into this and let's play a little game. Here we go. Are you addicted to social media? Let's pick on Snapchat. Anybody ever do a Snapchat?
We tried.
Like-
once
We
upon a
tried,
time.
yeah.
We couldn't figure it out.
Keith and I actually tried to do Snapchat. And did you know that Snapchat is actually totally on the decline?
Wow.
It's too hard to use.
They've lost millions of subscribers because they literally say that older people try to get onto it and use it, and it's super confusing.
What's that say about us?
We couldn't figure out how to even make a post. But here's some way that if you play with this out there, you might want to take a look at this if you're addicted to Snapchat. If you have these posts and they're more than a minute, you know, or you keep posting minutes every single day, you might be addicted. Or if you're playing with Snapchat and you know what all the filters actually do.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? And you notice when the filters are...
Wait. So knowledge means addiction?
So wait a minute.
Familiarity?
If you actually...
That's a good point.
Yeah, if you pay attention to all of the little like filters and then they take them out and they, you know, give you new ones and stuff every once in a while. But you can actually add, you know, a minute story. So if you're adding a minute story every single day, you might be addicted to Snapchat, right?
Well, a minute a day don't sound bad.
People over abuse that little minute Snapchat, and they're kind of constantly making stories all day long.
So it only allows you to do 1 minute a day. You can't
In
do
video.
2 stories that are a minute long a day.
I think you can. Yeah, I think it limits you to a minute.
Oh wow.
That's not true.
There, I don't even know.
It's like you can film for a minute and then you just got to film again.
So you can put unlimited.
You can post as much as you want, but the videos are cut to a
Gotcha.
specific time frame.
Yes. So you have only a minute video, but you can do multiple videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
If you're doing multiple. I'm not a Snapchat user. So if you guys actually know what the filters, you ever played with the filters?
My wife has this on her phone just for the filters. We like to play with our daughter. Yes. My daughter gets a little too into it, I think. But.
Yeah, because they're awesome, and you know you can change your voice even on some of them. It's really, really kind of interesting. But you might be addicted if you are like Ellen here and constantly find yourself playing with these things for hours on end and making silly faces and doing that. And let's pick on Instagram though, because Instagram is one of the most popular social media sites that's out there. You guys Instagram users?
Yes.
Yes? Like avid Instagram users?
I don't post much, but I do scroll on my feed a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what have you ever scrolled through everybody that's in your feed and then set the phone down and then picked it right back up and started scrolling through it again? You ever done that?
All new stuff now.
Yeah, right. This is something that people do all the time because they have literally trained themselves to like float through the social media app.
Wow.
And it's just an involuntary action. You might be addicted if you do that. How about this? Have you ever looked at what everybody comments and then gone to that person, even though you don't know them, and gone and read their comments? Have you ever done that?
Not on Instagram, but yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like floating down this rabbit hole of people's comments and looking at people's pages that really you have no care for, but you're just like, hey,
I wonder if they'll accept my request.
Yeah, exactly. All right, how about this? For you avid Instagram users out there, have you ever noticed that if you slide to one side on the comments, you can actually see when they commented and when they posted? You know there's all these special features on there? No?
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Did you know that? So I would say if you are actually reading through people's comments and paying attention to when they commented and trying to analyze why they commented, you might be addicted, but this is a feature that is built into it. How about Twitter? You guys use Twitter?
I do.
No.
You use Twitter?
I'm a Twitter guy.
Okay, so like Twitter a lot?
Yeah.
Do you tweet?
Occasionally.
Yeah, because I think most people that actually pay attention to Twitter, I think it's a small percentage of people that actually tweet.
It's about 40% of people on Twitter only follow other people and don't tweet anything.
Interesting.
So they might be reposting or retweeting or whatever. But for me, it's like a source of news. That's what I use it for. And I guess it suits my personality because it's direct, it's to the point. You're not getting a lot of fluff. It's just like, there it is.
Okay, so people that use Twitter for news and stuff like this, have you ever come across people's tweets like this one that says, I just had waffles this morning? Right? No?
Not really.
People tweet
On
the most
Facebook,
ridiculous things. I mean, our president tweets some pretty ridiculous things, right? But they tweet it like it's like this like ongoing play-by-play of what they're doing today. And, you know, they treat it like a journal.
Yeah.
You might be addicted to Twitter if you are actually tweeting that much. How about Facebook? Have you ever seen people that really post every little thing that they do on Facebook?
Oh, I don't do that.
Like they literally have a play-by-play commentary of
This is my life.
This is my life.
Check
this is what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. I mean, we all have friends that are like that, which is funny, and it's kind of a funny little meme. You guys ever use the poke feature?
Do they still have that?
No. No, I haven't.
I haven't been poked.
I haven't poked, but
to me, it's the most annoying thing.
Isn't it creepy? It's still creepy. Like somebody poked me, like they're watching. I mean, you know when you get on Facebook and all of a sudden it's like ding, 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 ding. All these people start messaging you, like as if, are you just waiting around? Like
I think now the poke has kind of been replaced with the little hand wave in the messenger, though.
Yes.
Because I've gotten that before, and I'm like, okay, I know this person. I haven't talked to him in a while, and suddenly I got a hand, and I've asked them, did you send me that? And they're like, no.
Oh, wow.
Like, is Facebook like just randomly throwing out hand waves to start conversation or something?
Yeah, I mean, we'll kind of get into that a little bit.
Oh, no.
But yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, have you ever noticed on Facebook as well, they give you the little read, like somebody reads from the messenger. Do you like that feature?
Like knowing whether they've read your comment?
Do you like that feature? Do you ever check it and be like, I know I just sent them a message and they read it.
Well,
but they haven't responded
iOS
to
has
me.
that feature and I like it.
Yeah, don't even text
so that you know that they got it.
Yeah, they know. I know they read it.
Yeah.
Well, then you have a lot of people say they left me on red, you know. So that's a thing, like it's a diss, you know. They read my message, didn't respond, they left me on red. So
here's the thing. You know how like on especially iOS devices, you know how it gives you the little notification at the top, right? Do you ever purposely not click into it because you don't want people to know that you've actually read it, but you read it? I've done that as well.
Just like the preview.
No? Oh yeah, you just kind of just read it real quick and it's like, oh, it went away, and I don't want to look at it because they'll know that I looked at it.
You mean like the little drop-down notification you can read?
Yeah,
I've done that.
That's funny. All right, how about YouTube? Let's pick on YouTube because I love YouTube. YouTube is my favorite. How about this meme? Going onto YouTube to watch a 5-minute music video. 5 hours later, you're watching a tutorial on how to talk to giraffes. Anybody guilty of that?
Yeah.
That's right.
Especially the little like recommendation bar, anything pops up there.
Oh, I mean, I have literally gone there to learn how to do something, and I'll find out like this is how they make jelly beans. This is amazing.
I was watching how they make toilet tissue the other day.
That's right. Because you're just like,
what did you get on there? Surely you didn't find.
Well,
you weren't
I
searching
got on
that.
there to look at how things are made because I thought if we're going to use social media, let's use it for cool reasons. You know, things we can actually go and visually see happening. And so it started off with like how balloons are made. It was very interesting, but when we got to the toilet tissue, I was kind of captivated. It's like, I never knew that.
There are whole videos that show you these machines that just pump out stuff, and it's like the way that it like moves around, and you're just like,
hypnotized.
They call them satisfying videos.
Yes. All right, how about this one? Homework and work can wait, but YouTube can't. Right? You're going to set aside your work. You're going to watch YouTube before, you know, because that particular thing is coming on. What I think is funny is like, you know, we do a lot of live shows or premieres where we do have people that are waiting to watch that. And some people do comment, I'm at work, you know, and I'm waiting to watch this. So I thought that was kind of funny. All right, how about this one? You have friends because of YouTube. Anybody guilty of this?
No.
No?
I think I've met,
Come on, Mikey. Mikey communicates a lot with people. You got people all over the world. All right, how about this one? A lot of people know you. A lot of people in the comment section know you and you've made top comment more than once.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, have you done that?
I've become top fan of a couple pages and stuff.
Yeah.
I guess that means you comment a lot. I don't know what that means.
Yeah,
you're really active.
Yeah.
Can you think of our commenters? Like, do we know specific ones that comment constantly all the time?
We have a few top commenters.
Noah, this is your shout out, brother.
Yeah. Thank you for commenting. So I'm going to show you guys a couple of videos that there is some very prominent people that have come out and started to talk about this whole addiction matter and social media. And when we start to get in this, it gets a little alarming because these are tools that we use all the time. So what can we really do to safeguard ourselves so that we're not falling into this pit of this little rat race that they basically have us all running on? So check out some of these videos.
Social media has become part of our nature. We post, we share, we like, we follow, we unfollow, we subscribe. But how is social media affecting us? A small study of 20 college students found a correlation between students who demonstrated higher levels of Facebook addiction and activity in the amygdala striatal system while they interacted with Facebook symbols. This activation was the same seen in those with substance addiction. In a 2016 UCLA study, teens were split into two groups. One was shown a photo with a high number of likes, and the other group was shown the same photo, but with fewer likes. Those who viewed the photo with more likes were more likely to like the photo themselves than the group who saw the photo with fewer likes. Again, it was the same picture. This experiment found activity in multiple parts of the brain when teens saw photos they took receive a lot of likes. In particular, the study found significant activity in part of the brain's reward circuitry known as the nucleus accumbens. Dopamine is released in the brain after positive social stimuli, such as likes and positive comments on social media. That photo she just posted, she got a bunch of likes, releasing dopamine into her brain and causing a feeling of satisfaction. Psychologist B.F. Skinner found that mice would respond to certain stimuli they knew resulted in a reward more often when the reward came at variable times. This theory can also be applied to social media and the times we check it looking for a reward in terms of a like, comment, or message. We habitually check our accounts, but we are not always rewarded. Maybe this photo didn't get the amount of likes you wanted, so you will try again and again and again, looking for that reward. But wait, something else. Have you ever felt your phone vibrate when it really didn't? According to Robert Rosenberger of the Georgia Institute of Technology, we've become so connected to our phones that they've sort of become part of our bodies. Anytime something stimulates or triggers sensation in an area where you keep your phone, you might believe it's your phone. This is called phantom vibration syndrome. Studies show that nearly 90% of people report experiencing these phantom vibrations.
You did a good job editing this thing.
Yeah. 90%.
90%.
That's a lot.
So what's really going on here? What's really going on in social media is it's really tapping into the chemistry of our brains.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like they said, you know, we have all these devices that have these built-in, basically like buttons, and you know, people can comment, and you know, all of that is feeding into our psychology and our desire as humans to be liked and validated. And then we get this little rush of dopamine that's like, wow, yay, somebody liked my video or somebody liked my post, and that causes you to come back and literally post more. Anything interesting about this video that jumped out at you?
I thought it was interesting that the people like the ones that are already liked. It's that sheep herd-like mentality, like, I like it because other people like it. And I think that's what makes things go viral, you know? You see some of the most ridiculous things go viral, like, why is this even viral? It doesn't even make sense. Well, because somehow it got 1,000 likes, and that just made other people keep sharing it. Oh, it must be funny because everybody's putting a laughing face on it.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's the same with subscribers. There are channels that have millions of subscribers, and I just scratch my head going, like, how does this person have a following?
Right. You brought up the other day the people that just eat food or something like that, and people watch them just eat food, like crunching on chips. What do you call it?
It's either ASMR or mukbangs.
ASMR, and I remember just watching a couple of those videos, and then what was crazy is I thought it was so insane, but then I just wanted to watch them.
Yeah, I know, dude.
Have you ever seen these?
I have. My son had them on, and I was like, what? It was supposed to be like soothing or therapeutic. I was like, isn't that annoying to hear someone crunching on something? I don't know.
For some people, they have like this tingling sensation in their neck or something. It's supposed to soothe them, but it's not for everyone.
Yeah, it's just the most...
But regardless of that fact, they still get millions of views.
Millions of views, and it's like we put all this editing effort in, try to make these videos neat, and it's like we got a few thousand. Just eat a bag of chips.
With ASMR, there's probably people who are really drawn to it, and then there's just the weird factor that gets the likes too. You know?
Right.
So.
Yeah.
So all of it really is pushing the chemistry in our brain. That's really what all of this stuff is really doing. So there's a lot of people that have come out and seen, you know, there's some real tangible issues that are starting to arise with constantly running around and like the little rats pushing the button, the lever for the little hit, you know, and it's like, what is this actually doing to us? So check this out.
So you're dealing with an addicted generation.
This is a big time bomb ticking.
This is no accident. Indeed, it is by design. I mean, seriously?
It was my mistake.
I mean, I think we can all feel it.
To try to make these products as addictive as
400%
possible.
spike in dopamine.
We now know that many of the major social media companies hire individuals called attention engineers who borrow principles from Las Vegas casino gambling, among other places, to try to make these products as addictive as possible. That is the desired use case of these products, is that you use it in an addictive fashion because that maximizes the profit that can be extracted from your attention and data.
It literally is a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. That is truly where we are.
The way the technologist Jaron Lanier puts it is that these companies offer you shiny treats in exchange for minutes of your attention and bytes of your personal data, which can then be packaged up and sold.
What happened is that the attention economy and this race for attention got more and more competitive. And the more competitive it got to get people's attention on, say, a news website, the more they need to add these design principles, these more manipulative design tactics, as ways of holding on to your attention.
You don't realize it, but you are being programmed.
Social media tools are designed to be addictive. The actual desired use case of these tools is that you fragment your attention as much as possible throughout your waking hours. That's how these tools are designed to use. Well, we have a growing amount of research which tells us that if you spend large portions of your day in a state of fragmented attention, so large portions of your day where you're constantly breaking up your attention, take a quick glance, do a just check, and just quickly look at Instagram, that this can permanently reduce your capacity for concentration. I am especially worried about this when we look at the younger generation coming up, which is the most saturated in this technology.
And it's very addictive because if you pull on the slot machine arm enough, you will win. And you never know which pull will reward you.
Wow. So that's quite a few voices that are literally saying, listen, there's some real issues with living our lives constantly addicted to this push of dopamine inside of our bodies and brains. What do you guys think about that?
It's more than just attention span that's affected. In fact, we know from research that it's a 10 to 20% reduction in the brain in areas of speech, memory, motor control, sensory, and other information. So, it really makes you question, do I want to sacrifice 10 to 20% of my brain capacity in those areas? And, is it a wonder that we have trouble communicating, if we're, and trouble with anger and trouble with all these other things, we're experiencing a reduction if we're locked in.
You're so right, and it seems like it's affecting all areas of life, especially in my generation. They made the point that, okay, this is the generation that's just steeped in this stuff, and look what's happening. Less people are going to school, communication is really bad, and just people can't or don't want to hold down a job. They rather travel around because they want that stimulation all the time. It's evident, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're running around looking at the most exciting parts of life. And, you live with this view of constantly paying attention to everybody else's exciting moments. And, that I'm sure is contributing to the depression that a lot of these teens are having. It's like you look at your life and you go, mine's slower and it's not that exciting and I don't have that many friends and I didn't get invited to that party. All of those things are really, I think, are plaguing this up and coming generation. So Mikey, you have kids. Keith, you have kids. Kendi, you do not. Deborah, you got kids? You got kids. What do we do? I have kids in this situation because my kids are growing up playing with our devices. They already know how to work the iPhone better than me sometimes. And, luckily I haven't crossed that bridge yet where they have asked me for their own phone, which I think is an absolute no for a while. But they will eventually have to have this tool. I mean, that's just part of life, right?
It's terrifying.
Unless we all go back to flip phones.
Which is very, considering.
Do you have a flip phone?
I was looking at them online. I don't know how long they're going to be supported, though, so that's, plus I've got to have the GPS.
Yeah. Well, I had a flip phone for many years, even up until about a year ago, and I had a smartphone that I bought for $30 off of the marketplace, and you can use it for Wi-Fi or whatever. And even when you don't have a connection, you can use the GPS on it. So that was helpful.
I would like to speak to that, though, and say that I have recently read an article, and I find this very telling, that a lot of the software manufacturers in Silicon Valley, and you can go and look up articles to verify what I'm saying, you would think that they would have the cutting edge technology in their schools. They don't. They have chalkboards and they have chalk, and they hardly use technology. The makers of this stuff, Bill Gates and the guy who made Snapchat, they don't allow their kids on social media hardly at all. Right. So when you're looking at people who are manufacturing this for other people, but they're protecting their own kids, I think that tells the entire story right there.
Those are California's Waldorf schools, and the way that they do that is they say no technology in the classroom before 8th or through 8th grade. Once they get into high school, technology is permitted.
Wow.
But before that time, no, they axe it completely.
Yeah, my mom was on that bandwagon. I didn't get a Facebook. I wasn't allowed to have a Facebook till I was 16. On my 16th birthday, she allowed me to log in. And I thought it would really like impact my school life, my social life, but it really didn't. I found out who my true friends were. If something was popular online, they would pull up their account and show me, we'd talk about it, but then we'd move on. It was never a big deal that I wasn't on social media, and I still have those friends today. So it didn't really impact me the way I thought it would.
And once you got on social media, you probably didn't look back at the experience and be like, oh man, I missed out on so much.
Yeah.
You just kind of move on,
exactly.
right? So I believe that there is a responsibility at the age that you get a little older, you know how to treat it, handle it, you know what I mean? And instead, there's a lot of trouble you can get into, which we do cover in this. We talk a little bit about some experiences of people targeting young kids on Facebook and really getting into trouble. So not only just, it's addictive and it's going to mess with your life like that, but there's some very real predators online that can do a lot of damage just communicating with your kids. So I think it's a really smart idea. Man, there's literally should be an age limit on that technology, and
Well, there's in some ways there's supposed to be, like for Facebook, I think there's supposed to be an age limit that you sign up. But if you lie about your birthday, I mean, you're going to get on, and it doesn't know the difference because it's not there with a representative checking you.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. It's very real that we're dealing with addiction. And so there's some guys that are really starting to comment about, like, what are we going to start to do about this? What can we do about this? Listen to this.
Simon Sinek famously says, if you wake up in the morning and you're checking your phone before you're saying hello to your spouse, that's an addictive behavior, and it's dopamine that is driving that addiction. So what happens with social media is Robert Sapolsky, who did the foundational research on this at Stanford, calls it the magic of maybe. When you look at your phone and maybe there's a text there and maybe there's not, and you don't know, when it shows up, that high you get, that's dopamine. It's the magic of maybe. Maybe it'll be there, maybe it won't. When it shows up, you get a 400% spike in dopamine. That is roughly the same amount of dopamine as you're getting from cocaine. It's slightly less than an extremely addictive drug like cocaine. And that's what's happening. And it's interesting because if you think about things that routinely produce a lot of dopamine, alcohol, for example, there's a drinking age. Right? We have a drinking age. The alcohol releases a whole lot of dopamine. It makes you feel really, really good. We say, okay, you can have that, but you've got to wait. You've got to be 21 years old. We don't do that with online pornography. We might want to do it with online pornography. We don't do that with social media. We're, essentially putting highly addictive drugs into the hands of kids before they have any natural defenses against them. And what you're seeing with internet addiction, with social media addiction, with porn addiction, it's the same thing over and over. It's people trying to change their state of consciousness with a device, trying to get at the underlying neurochemical chemistry, and it's very, very addictive.
Wow.
So, as parents, you have to realize and recognize that these devices were designed to basically hold your attention, release that dopamine. And like he said, I mean, isn't that crazy? A 400% spike in dopamine is like doing cocaine.
Wow.
I mean, we wouldn't let kids or anybody, it's illegal to do cocaine, but here it is, we are handing them these devices and getting them roped in. And that's why I think, parents just need to be judicious about this and not allow those young kids to have their own social media accounts until they're older, and talk with them about it. Don't just hand the device and let them have free reign.
No.
Well, there's a really common misconception that technology is neutral and it's up to us to just choose how to use it. And so we're sitting there and we're scrolling and we find ourselves in this kind of wormhole, and then we say, oh man, like I should really have more self-control. And that's partially true, but what we forget when we talk about it that way is that there's 1,000 engineers on the other side of the screen whose job it was to get my finger to do that the next time. And there's this whole playbook of techniques that they use to get us to keep using the software more. So was design always this manipulative? It wasn't always this way. In fact, back in the 1970s and the early 80s at Xerox PARC, when Steve Jobs first went over and saw the graphical user interface, the way people talked about computers and what computers were supposed to be was a bicycle for our minds. That here we are, you take a human being and they have a certain set of capacities and capabilities. And then you give them a bicycle and they can go to all these new distances. They're empowered to go to these brand new places and to do these new things, to have these new capacities. And that's always been the philosophy of people who make technologies. How do we create bicycles for our minds to do and empower us to feel and access more? Now, when the first iPhone was introduced, it was also the philosophy of the technology. How do we empower people to do something more? And in those days, it wasn't manipulative because there was no competition for attention. Photoshop wasn't trying to maximize how much attention it took from you. It didn't measure its success that way. And the internet overall had been in the very beginning not designed to maximize attention. It was just putting things out there, creating these message boards. It wasn't designed with this whole persuasive psychology that emerged later. What happened is that the attention economy and this race for attention got more and more competitive. And the more competitive it got to get people's attention on, say, a news website, the more they need to add these design principles, these more manipulative design tactics, as ways of holding on to your attention. And so YouTube goes from being a more neutral, honest tool of just here's a video to, oh, do you want to see these other videos? And oh, do you want to autoplay the next video? And oh, do you want to, here's some notifications. These products start to look and feel more like media that's about maximizing consumption and less like bicycles for our minds. And I think that's such a subtle and important thing to recognize, is that more and more of technology is really not on our team to help us spend our time the way we want to. It's more on the team of maximizing how much time we spend on the screen.
Wow.
You know what I find especially irritating about that is you have all these services anymore that are, they're doing this, and then they're also charging subscriptions.
Yeah.
So it's like they get you hooked, and then it's like, now we need to drop your bank account a little bit too. It's like as if you're not making enough money off my information and my time already through advertisements. Now you're even going to charge me for it.
So true. I think it's very interesting how he kind of set it up too, is it wasn't a malicious intent in the beginning. And just the nature of the beast, it's like everybody's kind of morphed into this, like, how can we consume as much of your time as humanly possible? And that is really like where the psychology that's being pumped into this. I mean, you guys think every one of these little apps, there's people in boardrooms, very intelligent people, that have literally designed these things to be like, how can we literally prove that people are using this thing like 8-10 hours out of the day,
But I appreciate that there's still a backdoor to get back to the original intent, and that's just to be aware and to be intentional. So there is a toggle on YouTube to stop autoplay so it doesn't go to the next video. So being aware of those things and how to help yourself not become addicted, if you put those in place, then you can use these platforms for their original intent, which is to get information and
good point.
Other things
to be the bicycle for your mind.
YouTube actually has a thing that shows you how many hours you've spent on it.
Yeah, and on phones too.
Well, I was terrified when I went in there and I saw it was like 48 hours or something, but it's because I was logged in a little late and we're all looking at videos at the same time. I was like, this isn't even humanly possible.
Ours is cute. That's all we do, folks.
Yeah.
We just watch YouTube videos nonstop. But yeah,
that was the first time I've seen it measures your hours so that you can look and be like, uh-oh, I've been on here a little way too long.
Yeah, I know you can put is it like a timer on your phone? So once you open up the Facebook app, it gives you 5 minutes, and then it actually shuts down the app, so you can't keep scrolling.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You bring up a really good point. I mean, like he said, the misnomer in the beginning is really just you just need to stop.
Yeah.
But like any addiction, you need to know that you are aware of there's this potential. I mean, if you're not even aware that there's an addiction out there, you can't solve the problem.
Yeah.
So you have to first say, okay, these things are designed this way. Now what do I do with this, and how do I begin to safeguard against this? Like in my house, we take steps to, we don't let our children play with technology in their rooms. And so if they want to look at something on the computer or they want to play with the phone, it's literally, in my view, you cannot go to your room and just check out, you know what I mean? Like, to me, that is asking for trouble down the road.
Yeah.
And so, there's ways that you can begin to then, build some parameters around that and teach how to basically navigate in an addictive world.
At our house, it's somewhat similar. At least we're trying to make it work. It doesn't always happen, but we make the kids ask.
Yep.
And along with the ask, it's what are you doing with it?
Yep.
So we know like what your intent is, and then we check up on them. What are you doing? Like if I see my son with something, I'm asking him, what are you doing? How long is that going to take you? That kind of thing. So it's not just, oh, I have free reign all the time, whatever, whenever. And I also got a new router at my house. My brother gave me a router he was getting rid of. Really like it. It has a feature where I can take the devices, I think it uses the MAC address of the device, and you add it to a list that says this device can access the internet between these hours.
Nice.
So like he has his own little iPad, that he's supposed to ask us before he uses it, but at 8 o'clock at night, that thing it can't access the internet. So sorry,
awesome,
buddy,
man.
you're out of luck. And not until like 9 in the morning or something, something like that. So you just shut down the hours, which I really love that feature. I think it's awesome.
Yep.
My mom made me a login on our desktop at home when I was, I think it was in middle school, and I had 2 hours a day. So, and that's everything. Like to do my homework, do whatever social things I want, watch videos, you have 2 hours. So that's also time management. What are you going to put first? What's your priority? Because after that 2 hours, sorry, I can't help you. That's it.
Yeah. But it's good advice for us adults as well. Like, we need to learn how to be able to shut off the technology, set it down, engage with the family. Otherwise, you guys might know this as well. Like, you start answering emails, you start communicating with people, and you got to do this back and forth thing, and your kids are like, hey, Dad, come outside and play with me. And they're like, yeah, I'll get to that. And then you don't. And then you go to bed and you go, hey, that little, I think it's like they say 15 minutes a day is all a male has with his kid. And it's like 45 minutes for a female. Like we're talking quality time. And so those little times are very precious to your upbringing. And if we're just checked out watching videos and responding on social media, then we lose out on those little precious moments.
Yeah. There's a lot of groups, medical groups, that are recommending that when you do things in media, you should do them with your child.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Not just free reign access, whatever you want, whenever you want. In other words, we do this together. It's also one of the recommendations in a book. I think I've recommended this before on this show. It's called The Tech-Wise Family by Andy Crouch. He has a list in there of the 10 tech-wise commitments. So it'd be a good book to check out.
Cool. So listen to this study that came out. It was very interesting in just the use of social media and why it's actually bad for our mental health. Because this is also something that I think when you understand how these tools work and you understand sort of the pitfalls and the dangers of them, hopefully that will help you avoid them a little bit. But they did a study, this came out in Forbes magazine, just to kind of talk a little bit about this social media and why is it contributing to like depression and things like that, right? York University in Canada found that young women who were asked to interact with a post of someone that they perceived more attractive felt worse about themselves afterwards. So what happened here is these women were actually asked, you can look at a post of someone that you think is more attractive than you, or you can look at a post of someone that's like a family friend or somebody that's going to give you warm, fuzzy feelings because you know them. And the people that chose to look at someone that was more attractive than always felt more depressed afterwards.
I mean, that's not just social media. Am I wrong?
Sure. No, you're not wrong. I mean, you go to the store, there's a magazine, you do the same thing.
Yes, but what is that feeling bad actually going to do to you? Listen to this. The results that were showed these young women who felt more dissatisfied with their bodies, says the study author Jennifer Mills in a statement, they felt worse about their own appearance after looking at social media pages of someone that they perceived to be more attractive than them. Even if they felt bad about themselves before they came into the study, on average, they still felt worse after completing the task.
I'm wondering if that's a symptom of, some root cause. Because if I look at a post like that, I'm like motivated, like, okay, where can I improve myself? And that's not the case for everyone. So is it a thinking, like, why are they feeling this way when they interact with those posts? Are there
You're hitting the nail actually kind of on the head of why they're getting to this.
Okay.
When you actually see somebody and you get a negative feeling like that, you're all of a sudden going to look at other people, like let's just say it's in the area of fashion. You see somebody who's very fashionable, they look great. Then all of a sudden you're more likely to go to the internet and look at other things like, where can I buy a shirt like this, or where can I do? So that negative feeling is actually driving people to post, look at, stare at more. And it's designed actually to put that up front and center with everybody. I mean, it's like magazines. Not everybody looks like that, right? You don't. That's not a real picture of how life really is. But what does that do? That makes women want to, try, strive harder, go back to shop more. All those things just drive the traffic. And so in the social media world, it does this very similar thing. Here's the bottom line, says the study's author, Melissa Hunt, in a statement. Using less social media than you normally would leads to a significant decrease in both depression and loneliness. These effects are particularly pronounced in folks who were more depressed when they came into the study. So if you are prone to depression, one thing that is going to absolutely not help you is diving more into social media. But the reality of the situation is that's what people do. When you're depressed, what do? You pull up the phone, you start going into it more. And so it's like this cycle that just you feel worse, then you post more, you look at more, you get involved in it more.
I was just going to say I can completely speak to that because I went through a season years ago where I was very isolated and I have a special needs child. And so my social life was very limited because of that, and I discovered social media. Well, I became completely addicted to both MySpace and Facebook, and I was to the point where if you stop at a red light, you're on your phone to check, before you get up in the middle of the night and you're on your phone. And it fragments your mind. It's like you're living in reality with your family and your kids and all that, but your mind is constantly running on this comment someone said and how they're going to react to this thing and all of that. And I felt fragmented. I felt like I wasn't fully satisfied with either world, and it was an absolute addiction. And for me, I had to completely shut down my social media, and it's like an alcoholic. Some people can drink a beer and be fine, but for someone who knows that that's been a struggle for them, it's like freedom is just saying no, Wow. But it does, I reached out to that because I was kind of dealing with some depression and stuff, and it actually does. It takes you deeper into that because the real thing you need is the redemptive love, and it's a false offering of that that is actually taking you deeper into something that you're already dealing with.
Wow.
We touched on this in our documentary a little bit. The heavy social media use actually makes you more internally focused on yourself.
Yeah.
Especially if you're an avid poster or whatever, you're constantly looking at yourself and comparing yourself to other people, and that will lead to depression because when you're so self-absorbed and so self-focused, that's kind of the end result of that. And I've talked to psychologists before. One of the best ways to get somebody out of a depressed state is actually to take them to like a food bank and have them go serve other people.
Absolutely.
The more that you can get them away from being focused on yourself, the better off they are. Yeah. The more that you dive into this, me, and it's all about me, and you can't see anything else but yourself, then the depression just kind of perpetuates.
But you're actually involved in ministry like that now.
Yeah, you brought up community. My thing is, when a person is depressed, like their whole thinking is warped. So is it really for them to reach out or for the people around them to reach out to them? Me using social media, it may not affect me in the same way as someone else, but I may be affecting the people around me with not recognizing if someone around me is depressed, and maybe I should put my phone down and help them out to be that alternate thing for them to do. So maybe they're using social media because they don't have people around them, so I can be that person, I can be that friend to reach out to them.
So there is research that suggests if you have a significant medical condition where you cannot go out and socialize normally, like you're just completely isolated, that is an instance where social media can be beneficial because it allows you to have a sense of community, whereas you would have none normally. The other thing that we know from scientific research is that people who use social media to augment their existing relationships or not, so in other words, not comparing yourself to a woman that you don't know or whatever, those are not considered to be harmful as far as they can tell. When you start to use it outside of your normal relationships, that's when you start to get yourself in trouble and you get depressed and you get in this comparative state and you start to see signs of decline and trouble.
Good point, good point. So there's a little bit of psychology that's going to be touched on here in this next video clip that I want to show you. And he's kind of describing how it works and why people are so drawn to posting.
We know that exposure to social media, and more precisely exposure to screen time, but not all screen time, but exposure to screen time and social media, we know that it tends to encourage depression, anxiety, suicide, and so on. Some numbers. Anxiety among teens increased by 20% since 2007. 17% of all teens with anxiety are today with severe anxiety, life-threatening anxiety. 17% compared to 3% about 10 years ago. We know that screen time decreases happiness, decreases life satisfaction. Everything I'm mentioning has a study attached to it, or studies attached to it. So it decreases happiness, life satisfaction, and decreases self-esteem. We know that. We know that it enhances anxiety and depression. The Royal Society of Public Health published a study in June this year, June 2018, which found out that 63% of all Instagram users are unhappy. Now, we don't know whether unhappy people gravitate to Instagram or whether Instagram made them unhappy. But since we have similar statistics for other social media, it would stand to reason that it's the platform that made them unhappy, not the other way. We know that anxiety and depression among the young, between 15 and 24, increased by 70% over the last 30 years.
That's a huge...
It's double, simply double. And we know that since 2010, teen suicide climbed by 31%. So teen suicide is rampant. And today, it is the first time in human history that the leading cause of death among teens up to the age of 24 is suicide. Not any disease or not even accidents. It used to be accidents. Today it's suicide. That's the leading cause of death. And this is intimately connected to social media.
I wish they were more specific. There had to have been a common link in all those people's lives who committed suicide or are depressed other than social media.
I think that it's not necessarily, it's so hard to put your finger exactly on this is the culprit and this is what's causing this, because society is changing. The way that we are interacting is changing, and all of those things together, I believe, are contributing with this whole depression thing with teens. I mean, like you said, the studies that they found with just Instagram alone, 60% of people that tinker with Instagram have a higher state of depression. That's high.
Yeah, I think some of this goes back to somebody referenced a video by Simon Sinek, which I recommend to a lot of people. And when he talks about it, he says that when you are a teenager, you start making friendships with your peers, right? And he describes it as this experience that's very frustrating for your parents, but necessary for the development of the teen so that they can, start to incorporate themselves into the larger world. And he makes the comparison that, like alcohol, most people that are alcoholics, they find alcohol when they're teenagers. And so when they start to experience stress, they turn to the bottle, they don't turn to their peers. And so he shows that it's the same thing with devices and technology and social media. So you're having the same group of kids, they have a dopamine, producing substances, devices all around them. And instead of turning to friends, they turn to those, and it's just like the experience with the alcoholic. So they're experiencing stress, career stress, financial stress, other forms of stress. And so when you immerse them then in all these devices, and those devices in turn create more depression. So I think you're just watching this whole thing feed itself, right? So, I mean, that's one of the best explanations, at least I've ever heard, is, the stress already exists.
No.
So how are you coping with it? Are you going to your friends and dealing with stress, or are you going to the dopamine producing device and dealing with stress? And if you're doing that, it only makes you more depressed.
It's hard to constantly beat up on social media because, we use social media. I mean, you're watching this on social media right now. I mean, there's very real people that use these tools and use them very positively. We've been able to share messages around the world, whether it be on Facebook or whether it be on YouTube. There's a lot of positive things with it, but listen to how these psychologists, the designers, the people that are making this thing, they're all recognizing this. It's like we've created this monster, and it's this white elephant in the room because everybody's using it, but we don't know quite what to do with it at this point. How do we begin to build these safeguards into it? Think about this. 60% of people that are more depressed because they tinker with Instagram, or 60% of them will have a higher state of depression. If I had a drug right now that I was to give to you and say, you know what, in a couple of weeks you're gonna lose weight and you're gonna lose it incredibly fast, but the side effect is 60% of these people are literally gonna be super depressed and commit suicide. The FDA would make that drug illegal tomorrow. Like, it wouldn't even get to this point. And so here is this thing that's producing this drug inside of us, this dopamine rush, literally addicting everybody to it. But society is a hard time dealing with this right now.
Here's where the rubber meets the road, it's where ethics meets finance. So all these companies that are producing this stuff, they know it, they know everybody's addicted, and they want people to use their platforms because that means more for their bottom line. It's not in their best interest to implement ethics for their customers, even though it may be killing them.
Right.
So
another thing too, I had read where they were actually exploiting the depression because the people who are behind the scenes making these apps and stuff, they can recognize behaviors and posts, and even I want to think it was Instagram. I don't want to say that if it was the wrong platform, but they actually exploited that by detecting when someone was depressed and deliberately putting images in front of them that further depression, and they were cataloging how it would affect that person over time. I mean, it's like experimenting with human nature for the sake of marketing, or how they benefit on the other end of the spectrum. But it goes back to your rats in the cage. We are the rats who are being experimented with, and sometimes we're even paying money to be experimented on.
Yep, exactly. We're feeding into
Well, so this is going to sound so messed up, but it's true. I remember when we were doing the Joker episode, I asked the question, should that movie have been banned because of how it affected the minority? Should it have been banned for the majority? And shutting down social media platforms because of what's happening to a percentage of young people nowadays, I mean, that's cutting off information, that's cutting off freedom of speech to the larger population, to the world. So it's like you've created this elephant, but to just destroy it because of the effects it'll have on people.
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. Because if you still have public broadcasting and news, you still have a source of information. You just have cut off somebody's preferred method. It's not necessary for them to receive the information in that way.
And I don't think the answer, too, is just cutting it off. I think that we need to be able to discuss some very real things with what do we do about this? Should there be age limits on it? Should there be, there should be more information put in the mainstream. I mean, our news companies should be broadcasting, hey, be careful, these things are like this. Or maybe there should be some ethics with businesses that use those psychological tactics to try and keep you on there as long as possible. Maybe there needs to be some sort of tapering down of that that machine, that they're allowed that free reign with our minds.
Well, it's weird because you look at it, it's like cocaine. Nope, we're never going to make it legal. It's illegal. It's unethical.
We fight wars over that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you got free speech or whatever. Cocaine's outlawed. But cigarettes, we'll just put a warning on there. It's legal.
Yeah.
Maybe it just needs to have, like, Facebook just always pops up a warning, like, you've been on here a long time.
Surgeon General.
Yeah, this can cause depression, you know, like. I mean, that's the only thing I can think to
At the
really
bottom
meet
line,
in the middle.
we're still dealing with freedom of choice and free will, and I always kind of come to this thing. I don't know if just controlling what people do is the answer. I think giving information, letting people have their own choice, you can choose. I mean, the reason why we wanted to do a show like this was really to just give the tools to parents, to people that are struggling with this, know how this stuff works, know that these engineers and these psychologists are talking about this and saying, hey, look, we designed this thing to be like this. What can we do from here?
But as Christians, we need to be especially careful, because what we're seeing happen is it's becoming harder and harder to have one of the fruit of the Spirit, which is self-control.
Yeah.
You know,
temperance.
And here we are putting all these roadblocks in front of us, and other people putting roadblocks in front of us to be able to exercise self-control.
Good point.
And that's not a good place to be.
It's a good point. Well, here's some of the stresses with especially Instagram, social media. Social media typically is someone's highlight reel. You know, they're only going to show you their best parts. Life isn't really like that. Like we don't see the middle parts, the struggles, the tears, often we see just, hey, we're having fun and this is great. And so when you're looking at somebody else's experience or life in that way, you then turn to internalize that and go, man, I don't live in that kind of a house. I don't have those kind of clothes. I don't have those kind of friends. And that in turn can be a source of depression. Social media is not your currency for your self-worth. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yep.
No.
Meaning, like, I am not validated because I posted something and 2,000 people liked what I posted. That says nothing about my self-worth at all. But in today's world, that's literally how people are viewing their self-worth. I mean, there's people like famous YouTubers that have literally like gone and wanted to commit suicide literally because people stopped liking them or they did something really not that nobody liked, and then that just ruined their life.
This makes me think of the Chinese, the social credit score. Like, this could become a reality. It's pretty scary to think about that things that you do could affect your life in society. But you can't ride this public transportation because you said something negative about the government.
He only realized when he tried to buy a train ticket and was told he was banned from traveling.
Or there's even public shaming and stuff. I'm sure you've seen that.
Yep.
The Bible tells us in 1 Corinthians 6:20 that we were bought with a price.
That's right.
You know, it's Christ's death which causes our life to have any kind of value at all, not what we find out in the world.
Infinite value to God because he was willing to give heaven's best, his own son. And I just think about that in my own experience. Would I give my son to die so that everyone else would live? You know what I mean? It's like, wow.
Who wouldn't appreciate it?
Yeah, it's like if you kind of just consider that mind of God, it just makes you go, wow, I want to serve that kind of God.
Yeah, while we were yet still sinners, not a bunch of people who love you, but people who hate you, and you're going to give your son for them.
That's right.
Mind-blowing, dude.
Another issue is the fear of missing out. Don't look at what everybody else is doing out there and, compare your slower paced life, or that you don't have the money to go on vacation like everybody else, or you're not asked to go to this party or that, hang out with those friends. That is a very real fear that especially teenagers are experiencing. Also, cyberbullying. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this. I think social media kind of came out when I was more of an adult. So I'm not really necessarily one that has firsthand experience of being bullied. Anybody?
Oh, yeah.
You've been bullied?
Yeah. I mean,
Mikey gets on the internet and comments with a lot of people. So yes.
Which side of the equation were you on?
Yeah. I don't know if you want to call it bullying, but
offering opinions.
Yeah, I get into a lot of debates, and when you bring up a lot of good points, the person just resorts to name calling or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah.
I have thick skin. I know that to me, it's just more credit in my favor, you know, that when they start doing that. So
that's right. Well, I have appreciated your loving approach with people, and I think we all need to do that. With people who like really experience this, my niece experienced this cyberbullying. She had gone to a new school, and kids that were coming to the school like literally were posting terrible things about her, and it made her literally not want to go to the school. I mean, she would come home crying. Yeah. So this is a very real experience with kids, and parents, we need to be aware of this. We need to talk about this with our kids, and we need to not allow this to happen, because you could be destroying somebody's life. Mm-hmm. So this is something that I think is very real. Listen to what this psychologist keeps kind of hammering away here.
Well, I mentioned before that social media is a conditioning tool, not an addictive tool, but a conditioning tool, and that it uses relative positioning. Mm-hmm. But what are the emotions that are attached to relative positioning? Well, the first one is envy, of course. So social media are constructed around envy, pathological envy. They are purveyors of pathological envy and amplifiers of pathological envy. And they quantify via various ranking algorithms, they quantify envy with likes, with retweets, so they quantify envy, and then they leverage envy to motivate you. In other words, they use envy to cause you to adopt some course of action. Mm-hmm. So they weaponize envy.
Well, if these social media devices are cultivating envy, what does that mean for us Christians? Mm-hmm. Wow. What is that really like doing to us, wiring, reprogramming us?
Especially when you're supposed to be truthful and honest. You know, you're being truthful and honest with your posts.
Right. It means we're less connected in the way that we're supposed to be.
For sure, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Envy, I think, is one of the ways that the devil can kind of just get in the door there and really start to make us take our eyes off of Jesus and to really place it on others. Things, materialism. I think a lot of that stuff comes out of envy. Listen to what he goes on to say.
We see that all social media encourage aggression via their algorithms and via the way they foster interactions. So they encourage, for example, peer aggression. They encourage bullying, they encourage mobbing, gang stalking, they encourage black humor, they encourage brutal honesty, and so on and so forth. You could say, what do you mean encourage? It's an empty space. I mean, you can put, in this empty space, you can put brutal honesty, or you can put compassion. It's not like they are forcing you, it's your choice how to abuse this empty blank space. Well, of course it's not true. It's not true because these platforms have been designed to condition, or as the founders and constructors of this platform now are attesting, they were conditioned to become addictive. But it's wrong, it's not addiction, never mind. We know what they're trying to say. These platforms encourage repeat use, repeat compulsive use. And now we know from psychology that only these kind of emotions, aggression, envy, hatred, only these kind of emotions encourage repeated use. So there is no way that they have designed these platforms without being aware that they must leverage these emotions to create addiction.
You're saying that in order to guarantee that there would be eyeballs on the screen for longer and more eyeballs on the screen, they've deliberately fostered negative emotions in that space.
Yes.
Anger.
There was no other way.
Envy.
Yes.
Resentment.
Yes. And they cannot come out and say you're wrong. Yeah. We similarly encourage love, because all psychological studies show that love does not motivate, it does not create or motivate repeat usage, repeat action, does not foster addiction.
No.
We have forms of love which are addictive, but then we're talking stalking, erotomaniac stalking, infatuation.
Yes.
These are pathological states. So pathologies. These platforms were designed with pathology in mind. It's not what I am saying. Some of the founders of Facebook and the main engineer of Facebook in the first few years have now gone public and admitted that they have built addiction into the platform. And now how do you do that? The only way to build addiction into the platform is to foster, engender, and enhance exactly these emotions.
Right.
There is no other way.
Yes.
You can't encourage voluntarism or love and expect repeat usage. Simply, there's no studies that support this.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, so what do you think of this? That's heavy.
That's super heavy.
They need to play that on all news networks. And
I mean, that's heavy. If what this psychologist is really saying is true,
yeah.
It's designed with these negative emotions intact, and that's why people love to get on and comment about how ridiculous you are with your videos, and how dare you have this concept, you judger, this and that, right? We deal with this all the time.
Bring on the haters.
Right, bring on the haters. And what I think is hilarious is the haters, they love to comment on like 15 of our videos.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because it's like, if you really didn't like what we said, you wouldn't keep coming back and commenting. And
it's the hostile feelings drawing them back.
It
They're addicted to the anger.
I literally would, if I thought somebody was being ridiculous, I wouldn't waste 2 minutes of my time.
Yeah.
And I would just go on and watch something else.
But the thing that intrigues me is the fact that love is freedom.
That's right.
And that's what I took away from that is love is not addictive because it gives a free choice, and it's free, that you have to use something negative to draw people back because love is not a bondage. I think that's awesome.
That is awesome.
It speaks volumes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when you really look at what the Bible says about love, right? You just analyze this topic of love. And the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 13:4, it says, love suffers long, is kind, it does not envy, it does not parade itself, it is not puffed up, right?
He uses the word envy.
Right, it does not envy. And the whole thing that is literally built around, it's an envy machine, is the opposite of love.
Wow.
And it doesn't foster and encourage us. Now, I want to be very, fair, because some of us, in fact, there's probably a lot of people who really do reach out and say, hey man, I really like what you're doing. I want to encourage you. I mean, I know Mikey, reaches out to a lot of other YouTubers. And, he's always sharing testimony videos with us of, hey, this guy just came to the Lord, and, he's posting these kind of things, right? So there are people who are encouraging. We get a lot of encouragement on our site.
Yeah, we do.
And so I don't want to beat up on everybody saying that, it just doesn't exist out there. It really does. But as a whole, the whole social media world is not designed to foster love.
Yeah, it's interesting how that works. You can read 100 positive comments, and that one negative one will just wipe away all those other ones.
Good point, because somebody will watch an entire hour video of ours and be like, that movie didn't come out in 98, it came out in 99. Like, is that what you pulled away from the hour-long video?
So true.
They're waiting an hour to get that.
Yeah, like, I cannot wait to say this.
If you're waiting to find holes in it, and then boy, that post will be like this long, right? And this psychologist actually brought up a really good point. Do you know what the enemy of Facebook is?
Relationships?
Intimacy. That is the enemy of Facebook, because all social media, they claim to be a content machine, right? Facebook, we're giving you content, but who's making the content?
We are.
We are. You are actually the employee of Facebook. We are actually the employee of YouTube. Without us, there is no social media site, right? And so when you are actually in a loving state, that you are focused and on your mate, right? You're not thumbing through Facebook, looking at everybody else's life. You're focused on your mate. So what they do is they get in the middle of that, they discourage us from these types of relationships, pin people against, have all these negative emotions, because that drives us to go back and pull the lever more and to actually post more.
Very true.
I would say, when you were talking about how do we respond as Christians, I would say two things. One, where are we getting our identity from? If we are having to change, like he was saying, everything that the world is putting out there, we're looking at the wrong source for identity, which is Christ and Him crucified. We are new creatures in Christ, and our only identity no matter where. If we are in, incarceration, or we were in a Nazi camp or whatever, our identity has to come from Jesus, not from what's happening and who's happening around us.
That's right.
So I think it just shows us, if I'm so pulled on by this, I am not in the intimate place with God where He's telling me who I am, so I'm bringing that out to the world. I'm trying to draw from the world a validation of who I am. But the second thing I would say is, I think one of the antidotes is very simple. I think it is relationship, and I think it's love. I think that a lot of people, like you were saying, why are people committing suicide because of social media? Because a lot of people are isolated, they're already broken, they don't know how to have those, they're not about to go to school and tell other insecure teenagers, hey, I'm being molested at home, or I don't know what to do to get into this college, and I'm afraid I'm a failure and all that. They don't have those kind of conversations. And so they're dealing with all this internal battle, and then they're seeking something, and they're looking at it on here, and this is only worsening, and it's not creating the intimacy, and so they've got nowhere left to go. And so now it's, I'm going to take my life, and people are going to cheer while they watch it happen.
Wow.
And so I think that the call is still the same. The mandate Jesus gave, it's still relevant in our time, is love one another. That is the answer.
Right.
If you feel loved, you don't need this drug.
That's true.
And I just want to say this one last thing. I find this fascinating. I looked this up for myself because I heard about it. I think it was in the 70s. Someone did a study on mice and addiction, because his point was that addiction is not biological, it's emotional. And to prove it, he did, I think it's called Rat Park.
Oh, yeah.
And he put these different mice in different settings where some of them were isolated and they had access to like a morphine or a water bottle. And the other ones were in a setting where it was a big place with wheels and food and other rats. And then there was another one where they spent part of the time in that and then part of the time in isolation. And the mice who were isolated, all of them were addicted to the morphine. But the ones who were integrated into the society, they would taste the morphine, then they go back to the regular because what they were getting from the social was better to them than the drug.
That's beautiful.
And it just showed, and it makes me want to cry.
That's beautiful.
Addiction is just it's a love connection we don't know how to make. So now we try to draw it off of this thing because it's too risky, or we haven't had the experience of love with another person or Jesus or whatever. So it's not all these, things we try to go to draw people off addiction. It's just love.
Yeah.
Right.
It is as simple as that. That is the redemption that we have.
That's right.
And the work it takes to get that love makes the reward of receiving it back, lasting, more lasting than the hate and just getting those quick, dopamine releases.
I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the ways that we can counterbalance this really is to show people love. This is a dying world out there, and we need to be demonstrating that connection that we have with Christ. We need to be pouring His love through us and out to this world. I want to share with you one last video. This is there was mentions a lot of one of the designers of Facebook and why he left Facebook. He's one of the engineers. He created Facebook with the original team, and he's been very vocal about what to do with this. So I want to kind of share with you, like, here's somebody that designed it, made it, put it out into the world, and then took a step back and just went, oh my goodness, what did we do? Listen to this.
Consumer internet businesses are about exploiting psychology. And that is one where you want to fail fast because, people are unpredictable, and so we want to psychologically figure out how to manipulate you as fast as possible and then give you back that dopamine hit. We did that brilliantly at Facebook. Instagram has done it, WhatsApp has done it, Snapchat has done it, Twitter has done it. So there are great examples. WeChat is doing it. There are great examples of failing fast is the right path to exploiting psychology of mass populations of people.
I want to bring us back to the point that you were making about exploiting consumer behavior in a consumer internet business. You said that this is a time for soul searching in social media businesses, and you were part of building the largest one. What soul searching are you doing right now on that?
I feel tremendous guilt. I think we all knew in the back of our minds, even though we feigned this whole line of like, there probably aren't any really bad unintended consequences. I think in the back, deep recesses of our minds, we kind of knew something bad could happen. But I think the way we defined it was not like this. It literally is a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. That is truly where we are. And I would encourage all of you, as the future leaders of the world, to really internalize how important this is. If you feed the beast, that beast will destroy you. If you push back on it, we have a chance to control it and rein it in. And it is a point in time where people need to hard break from some of these tools and the things that you rely on. The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. No civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation, mistruth. And it's not an American problem. This is not about Russian ads. This is a global problem. So we're in a really bad state of affairs right now, in my opinion. It is eroding the core foundations of how people behave by and between each other. And I don't have a good solution. My solution is I just don't use these tools anymore. I haven't for years. It's created huge tension with my friends, huge tensions in my social circles. If you look at my Facebook feed, I've posted maybe 2 times in 7 years. 3 times, 5 times. It's less than 10. And it's weird. I guess I kind of just innately didn't want to get programmed. And so I just tuned it out. But I didn't confront it. And now to see what's happening, it really bums me out.
So think about this as being one of the creators. And like you said, the guilt that he must feel, putting this out into society and realizing if there has been a huge spike in suicide, if there has been a huge spike in depression, something that you created or helped to create is contributing to this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a heavy weight to carry around. Mm-hmm.
I love that he's taking responsibility for it, and he's open. Like, we don't have a solution, but I myself have stopped using this platform. That speaks volumes.
Leading by example.
Yep, totally speaks volumes. And I'll tell you what, after kind of watching this, like I was never really an avid poster anyway, just on Facebook at all. But it's really made me think about, like, intentionally, why am I sharing information? What am I posting? What am I putting out there in the world? And it's made me really kind of even look at the stuff that we do. And I think this is not, everybody is out there putting things out that's damaging everybody. I mean, really, I've learned a lot from watching ministry videos and other people and seeing testimonies and stuff like that's really inspired me. So I know there's positive uses to this. I think he's speaking in a blanket statement about society as a whole. Mm-hmm. Here's something that's interesting. I want to leave you guys with one more little video clip here, and then we'll wrap this up here. Here's what Mr. Denzel Washington was asked the question, in this age of social media, what would you say to young people? This is what he answered.
Turn it off. That's what I would say. It's hard for young people now because they're hooked. They're addicted. If you don't think you're addicted, and I'm talking about anyone, from the highest to the lowest, if you don't think you're addicted, then see if you can turn it off for a week. It got quiet in here, didn't it? Didn't it get real quiet? It's a tool, so we should use it. God has blessed us with free will. Now it's free will magnified, free will on steroids. You're free to go in any direction you want. It will allow you, and it's not the enemy. It's just a reflection of our own free will, and we all want to be liked, but now we want to be liked by 16 million, and will now some of us do anything to be liked. We used to do anything to be liked, but it was by the person in front of you. Now it's to be liked by 16 million people that you don't know. We have to ask ourselves, what is the long-term, if not the short-term effect of too much information?
I think it's some very valid points he's bringing up.
For sure.
It's kind of ironic and interesting coming from a celebrity, who has put himself out there like that. But it sounds like he's learned from all this probably. He probably was in the shoes of that person who would do anything to be liked by 16 million people, and he can speak from experience.
Yeah, interesting coming from him. Jesus was not self-seeking at all. Even though he was God, literally, I mean, he could have roamed around here and been like, hey man, I created this place. Mm-hmm. But he didn't. And like it says in John 5:30, it says, Jesus himself said, I seek not my own will, but the will of the Father which had sent me. Jesus was demonstrating to us what a real life should look like. not being self-absorbed, not being self-seeking. And I think that's the true path to happiness. Luke 9:23 says, if any man come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. I think it's interesting how the devil always has a counterfeit for what God is doing, right? Follow me on Twitter, follow this, follow that, follow over here with this organization or this organization, right? When really we should be following Jesus. That's really what we should be doing. Jesus wasn't self-seeking at all. In fact, when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, he says a very, very interesting prayer. Not as I will, Lord. Because remember, he's sitting there begging God, if it's possible, take this cup from me. Is there another way? Is there some way? His humanity was flashing through at this moment of him literally saying, I don't want to go through with this. His human side saying it. But he says, not as I will, as you will, God. As thy will be done. Now, I bring that up because if anyone watching out there is experiencing addiction, doesn't know what to do, right here is the key to being able to deal with any addiction, not just social media. It could be drugs, sex, pornography, you name it. Here is the key. I don't know how to fix this, but Christ, you do. God, you do. Not as I will, as you will. I give you permission, God, to change my heart and let God work on us from the inside out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, full surrender.
The more that we put the blinders on, the more that we try to just put all those controls on, and we're not literally turning the wheel over to Jesus and saying, help me through this process. I give you the option to be able to change my tastes, my desires, my addictions. Give that over to Christ. That will be a true and tried way of being able to deal with addiction.
I think when you look at the story of the woman at the well, and Jesus said, bring your husband, and she said, I don't have one, and he said, you're right, you've had 5. He didn't say, now go home and tell all those men goodbye and come back here. He gave her what she was really needing. And I think that we try to put the cart before the horse. We try to get rid of the problem when the problem is there because there's a deficit. We don't even need to get rid of the problem. We need to take in the thing that we're really needing, and it'll push the problem out.
That's right. That's right. Good point. Well, thank you guys for watching this LED Live. We hope that you aren't completely walking away from this fearful, but you probably need to get rid of your phones and delete all your accounts right now. Just kidding. Just actually don't delete our YouTube channel.
That's right.
You know, if you like this video, please share it with other people. This is a very real situation, and we wanted to do something that was very real with you know, these struggles that we all experience. So please, by all means, you know, pray about this one, think about it, share it with your kids, talk about it with your family members, and of course, we want to hear your comments if they're only good comments, not negative ones.
I like to hear from those haters.
Yeah.
Little dopamine.
Send all of them to Mikey if you're hating on this video, and he will respond to everyone.
That's right.
But thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you next week.